All right, looking at this worksheet that's asking me to identify the types of chemical bonds. To do this worksheet, it's going to be really helpful to have out the copy of the periodic table that we colored in class, where we color-coded the metals and the nonmetals. So if you didn't add this to your periodic table yet, you might want to add the notes. So if I have metals and I'm combining them with a nonmetal, combining a metal and a nonmetal is what we worked on at the end of last week, and that's going to give me an ionic bond. And what we started working on this week, can I move this out of the way? There we go. If I have a nonmetal and a nonmetal, that's going to give me a covalent bond. And we mentioned in class, if I have a metal and a metal, that's going to give me a metallic bond, but we're not really worried about those this year. So having that information handy is going to make it much easier to identify what type of chemical bonds we're working with here. So I'm going to want to look at each of the elements that are listed in these compounds and figure out if it's a metal or a nonmetal and what they make together. So I'm going to color code mine blue and red because that's what I used on my periodic table here. But if you use different colors on your periodic table when you colored yours in, you can use those. Okay? So calcium. Oops. All right, so calcium, if I look at my periodic table, calcium is over here, so that is blue. And chlorine is over here on the right side, and that one is red. So if I have a metal and a nonmetal bonding together, that is an ionic bond. Carbon is a nonmetal, and oxygen is a nonmetal. If I have two nonmetals bonding together, they are covalent. Hydrogen, even though it's on the left side of the table, hydrogen is that one that's going to act like a nonmetal. And oxygen is a nonmetal, so again, I have covalent bonds. Sodium on my periodic table is over here in group 1. That is a metal. And oxygen, we've said, is a nonmetal. So if I have a metal and a nonmetal bonding together, they are ionically bonded. Potassium is in group 1, and it is a metal. And oxygen, we've said before, is a nonmetal. So metal and nonmetal, we said, gives us an ionic bond. Sodium, we just said, was a nonmetal. Whoops. Fluorine, if I look over here, sodium is a metal, getting my colors mixed up. Sodium's metal. Fluorine over here on the right-hand side is a nonmetal. A metal and nonmetal bonding is ionic. All right, so you might recognize this chunk that we have here where I have parentheses because the CO3 is all bonded together. If you remember from the other day, we said that those are called polyatomic ions. So it's telling me here if I have a polyatomic ion plus a metal, that's going to give me, it's going to be considered both types of compound, or both types of bonds happening there. So I have a polyatomic ion here. I'm going to check my periodic table, and aluminum is a metal. So I'm going to label that this one is both. All right, I have carbon, which is a nonmetal, and I have hydrogen, which is a nonmetal. So two nonmetals together, this one is covalent. S is sulfur. That is a nonmetal. Oxygen is a nonmetal. So number 9 is covalent. Lithium is a metal. Bromine is a nonmetal. A metal and a nonmetal bonded together is ionic. For number 11, I have magnesium, and magnesium is a metal. And then I have PO4 inside my parentheses, so that's a polyatomic. And if I have a metal and a polyatomic bonded together, I'm going to label that as both. All right, number 12 looks like it might be a little bit tricky because I have just bromine bonded with itself. But bromine is a metal, sorry, a nonmetal, and if it's bonded with itself, it's bonded with a nonmetal. And two nonmetals bonded together are covalent. All right, carbon is a nonmetal. Whoops, wanted my highlighter there. Oxygen, I can see on my periodic table, is a nonmetal. Hydrogen is a nonmetal. So even if I have 3 nonmetals bonded together, because they're all nonmetals, they are covalent. And then H2O, H is a nonmetal, O is a nonmetal. So number 14 is covalent. And then we got 15 over here in the top. So carbon is a nonmetal. Hydrogen is a nonmetal. Oxygen is a nonmetal. Hydrogen again is a nonmetal. So if I have all those nonmetals bonded together like we had before, that is covalent. Yay.